Hey everyone, welcome to Conversations with Curtis, the podcast. This is Paul.
This is Daniel.
And this is our second ever podcast. Podcast/YouTube channel show. I'm not quite sure what we are these days. What are we, Daniel?
A bit of both.
A bit of both. So if you want to hear us in your car or as you're at work and you can't watch the show, then this is what we've created for you. But we're also filming. We're also videotaping. This is me back in the 80s and 90s. We are also video recording these episodes as well. So if you would like to continue,
and you can get the VHS tapes by mail.
Exactly. That's right. Anyway, today's show, we have a very special guest, Denny Delk, the voiceover actor that we all know from the Monkey Island games and that you all know from Day of the Tentacle and many other video games. And we just had a really, really fun conversation with him, didn't we, Daniel?
Yeah, we did. And now is the nerve-wracking part because we just recorded the conversation on Zoom. And now I get to watch the Zoom convert it into a video file. And hopefully it will work.
Yeah, so we've been using this new this program called Riverside, which is really meant for podcasts. It records both the video and the audio on everybody's individual channel. And so it makes it a lot easier for editing. It also, the sound is really quite good just based on this program. Zoom, not so much, but we couldn't get Denny to join us for some reason. He had some issues. We actually tried to have this interview a week ago, and he couldn't join us at all. So anyways, we ended up having to do it via Zoom. And now Daniel's going to spend the next however many hours trying to make it all sound and
8
look good.
to 10 days editing it.
So
this also serves as an explanation on why the audio quality on the interview will be a bit lower than the audio quality in the rest of the podcast.
Right. But before we bring Denny out, Daniel, you and I have been playing for what feels like years, the X-Files video game with our good friend Tori Hemingson. And we thought it would be a good time since we just played a couple days ago, and we're now on day 5, which means we're day 6, I think, right? Where are we? I don't know where we are, but we're
in day 5. Hopefully we'll finish it in the next century or so.
So we're going to bring Tori in just a couple seconds, and we're going to talk about our experience, our collective experience playing this game after today's stream. So unless we want to talk about anything else, do we want to bring Tori in right now, or what do you think?
Yeah, let's bring her in.
All right, Tori. Are you there?
Hi, Paul.
I'm also here.
Good. How are you?
It's been a long time
Daniel.
since we've talked to you, and I'm so happy you're here. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about this game we're playing. This X-Files game. What's your take on it in general as a game? And what are you? Yeah, I think we're all having fun with how frustrating it is, but what's the?
I mean, I'm having fun because you guys are fun, but and the game is fun, but it's a little frustrating because I don't feel like I can explore as much as I want to, and it's hard to see. Actually, today I was having troubles, like I couldn't even see the shovel, but I realized my brightness was turned almost all the way down.
Well, okay.
I figured that out halfway through.
You're saving on electricity.
Yeah, but I'm having fun.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very good game. It's very, you're given a list of questions, and almost all the questions you ask are just met with a negative response. So you don't get anywhere. Nothing leads to anything. It feels like the game kind of is playing itself, except for you moving around. But the way that you move around is so disorienting and doesn't have any sense of spatial,
So I think what you're saying is like, yeah, you can't hold a map of the space in your head because it doesn't seem to have, there doesn't seem to have a set shape like that you can refer to. Like, I mean, the buildings are weird and the maps are not clear as far as like where you can take your
Yeah,
characters.
it's like
I'm not.
pixel hunting in adventure games is very annoying. And when these are 2D adventure games, it's annoying enough. So when you're moving in a 3D space and you don't know where you actually are, then it's even more annoying. You can look up, you can look down. There are things everywhere, and you still need the pixel hunt in each screen. So, for example, in Phantasmagoria 1, you had the pixel hunt, the letter opener. You had to know to look at the cat or rotate it and open the letter opener in order to use it afterwards. But this was still in 2D space. Over here, we need to go through buildings and look through different scenes. So it's more annoying.
Yeah, but it's just hard to, and it's hard. What I was trying to say is it's hard to navigate the buildings, like the rooms, and it's always hard to do that. But this one is especially hard.
Because it doesn't feel like it's 3D enough. It's like it'll just take you to a spot, it just sort of flashes on the picture of the next place, but it doesn't feel like you're moving in the actual room. It's very...
Yeah, that's like the lab where you just, you go right.
To the left twice and you're in the same place.
Exactly.
Yeah. But all that said, there is something about the way this game is that allows for a fun dynamic of playing it. It doesn't require a lot of, Daniel got to shoot some people today, so that was fun. It actually had some action to it, and you had to do it within a time frame, before. So that was new. But it's weird because we've given up on other games, and yet I feel like we're going to actually stick with this one. So there's something about it that has kept us wanting to keep playing it.
We want to find Mulder and Scully.
Exactly. Yeah, we got to get them.
It's not that the plot in it is engaging. It's that Mulder and Scully probably have so little screen time, and we want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's like our reward after all of these boring live streams.
Yeah. But I have to say, I was expecting UFOs, and I haven't seen any UFOs yet.
Yeah, no aliens, no UFOs. But I think we're getting there, right? Because he said it has nothing to do with the plutonium Russian oligarch people. Yeah. So we're going to get to the UFO stuff, I'm sure. That's why we're going to keep playing.
Now that I think of it, it's very similar to Phantasmagoria 2. Because in Phantasmagoria 2, you're in the office, you're answering emails, you talk to people, you have to Reese. You think that the story is going in one direction, and then in Chapter 5, you get to Dimension X, and you're an alien, and that's it. Game over.
Yeah, maybe that's where we're heading towards right here. And it's funny because Mulder and Scully are missing, and we have two detectives, a male and female detective of Wilmore and Arcadian, what's her name? Arcusian?
Astadorian.
And then and then we got Delaney and Craig. So there's three sets of pairs, and then we have Daniel. See, they all needed a Daniel. That's what was missing with Mulder and Scully. Did they have a Daniel? Maybe it was Skinner. No. I don't know. Yeah. Well, luckily we have one.
Everybody needs a Daniel. Everybody.
It's true, and they just can't have ours because we got him. Yeah. So speaking of, we have had a long trying to get it's been a long time trying to get Roberta Williams to chat with us, and today during our stream I finally heard back from her specifically saying that she would like to do that. So we are going to the idea is because Tori, you haven't seen her since you guys made the game, so
no.
I think it would be fun to just facilitate a conversation between the two of you. And so we'll just schedule a time, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I know you're going to be on jury duty, but whenever your schedule allows and her schedule allows, I think it's going to be really fun. It could be a really big thing for our channel to have the two of you meet each other after all these years and share your memories and such.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun.
Okay.
Do you have any questions in mind?
Me?
Yeah, for her.
Oh, me for her. Well, I guess did it like turn out the way she envisioned? I think would be one. And when she was writing it, like did it meet her expectations? And also, like, what does she remember about the filming? She wasn't there she wasn't always there. Like if she remembers any.
Maybe she remembers the catering.
Yeah, if she remembers the catering, that's a really good question. Because for some reason, I don't know, because food is important to me. So I don't know why I don't remember that. Yeah, I'll think of more questions.
Yeah,
I mean, the concept that for actors, they have to bring you lunch or dinner, depending on how many hours you film, to the set. It sounds like a lot of fun.
You mean to be an actor who gets to have food brought in?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
Anytime you get free food, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we should decide what we're playing next. What are some things that you have in mind for us, Daniel, after this one?
Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of adventure games, classic adventure games that we can play. But the question is, which type of game Tori wants us to play? Because we started games like Toonstruck, which on one hand is an animated game. On the other, it's an FMV game. And it's a classic game, but still, there wasn't. It didn't click that much. Mm-hmm. So we can continue going in the direction of FMV games because, in terms of gameplay, they're very limited. You don't have a lot to do. You just click on things and you see the cutscenes and so on and so forth. But we can go to more complex games that require solving weird puzzles. We can finish The Seventh Guest, so you'll finally see the conclusion for that game.
That would be fun. Would you want to finish that game, Paul?
Yeah, I kind of like. I like I liked the puzzles. I mean, the game itself is, there's not much to it, but the puzzles are kind of fun once you get to those. And I imagine there's a few more of those that we have to figure out.
Yeah, I don't remember puzzles in that game. What puzzles did we?
Like the chess thing, you have to kind of get through the, there's all those moments of, you were really good at them all.
Yeah, you solved all
the puzzles. That was in the Seventh Guest? Oh, the Seventh Guest. Okay, I'm getting mixed up. Yeah, the Seventh Guest. Yeah, that would be fun.
I don't know, I think.
So the game recently celebrated its 30th anniversary at the beginning of April. So can do a celebratory stream for
yeah, that would be fun. What other FMV games do you like that have fun puzzles that you can think of, Daniel?
Well, most of them have very obscure puzzles, but it depends on which there's from Sierra we only had Phantasmagoria 1 and 2 and Gabriel Knight 2. And from other companies, we have the X-Files, we have Ripper with Christopher Walken, and we have The Seventh Guest. The 11th Hour is kind of bad. It's the sequel to Seventh Guest, but a few years back, there was a second sequel to Seventh Guest, made by a bunch of fans, and it's called The 13th Doll. So it may be a bit, it may be new, but it's still campy. Very campy.
Really? That might be fun. What's the Christopher Walken one? What's that?
It's called Ripper. Christopher Walken's has like an 8-minute screen time, but it's very similar in UI to X-Files. So you move in 3D space and you need to pick things up. And
What do you think,
we
Paul?
can keep playing Phantasmagoria 1 and 2. Every time we finish Phantasmagoria 2, we go back to 1.
No, that would be Daniel's channel. That would be the Daniel Albu channel, playing those two games over and over again. I don't know. I think it's too much to choose from, quite honestly. The idea of, I think I get that we could go back to Seventh Guest because we didn't finish it. So I think that makes sense and probably wouldn't take too long to get through it. I like the idea of,
I was thinking contradiction, a liar, when you said go back to Seventh Guest. For some reason, I was getting the two mixed up. But
contradiction, right?
I'd like to go back to contradiction. I really enjoyed that, and the reason we couldn't play it was because my computer at the time didn't have the ability to do that. And so that would be fun. We can get back to that. I don't know. I'd have to send you my game, Daniel, so you'd figure out where we were saved at, or would we just start? I wouldn't want to start over. I don't think
we'll start all over.
Really? I don't know about that, but
you could ask. You could ask.
And besides, there are new FMV games. Nowadays, FMV games, the newer ones, don't have the same interactivity that the old ones had. You don't walk around or do anything. It's usually you see a cutscene, then you have two choices. Either respond that way or respond that way, or you have two actions you can do, ignore something or do something, and then the plot moves along the path that you chose.
Yeah, and it might be interesting to play one of the games from Diabeki Studios, either their newest one. They sent us the key to it, so it might be kind of fun to check that out, or one of their earlier ones. But yeah, I think I'm personally interested in some of the newer stuff that's out there, and how they've taken this thing and found a new way to explore it. So I wouldn't mind combining us, as we play. Every time we play an older classic game, I'd like to sort of counter that with something newer.
Yeah, it would be fun. Kind of be interesting, us having been in such an old game, playing a new game.
Yeah,
that could be interesting
for sure. All right, well, we will table all this and figure it out later, but I'll let you go. Tori, thank you for joining us again, and we'll be back with our interview with Denny Delk. That's going to be fun. And Tori, you don't know what Denny is yet because you haven't played any Monkey Island games. You have to come join us for a Monkey Island stream someday.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Okay.
That'd be fun.
I'll let you know the next time we do. All right. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
So we're going to bring Denny. We're going to share with you our interview with Denny in just a little bit. But this is a little section that Daniel and I want to share with you, which is basically he and I trying to figure out how to continue to build conversations with Curtis and grow it. And so we have some ideas that we want to bounce back and forth between ourselves and hear your thoughts as you listen to this thing. And the first one is creating. Right now, what we have is an opportunity for people to commission themselves as a co-host and to join us and to play the game of their choice on one of our live streams. And the very first episode of that is going to be coming up this Friday with one of our Patreon members, Zwex, who is going to join us. And his game of choice is a game called Gomo. I know nothing about this game, but apparently it's really fun and doesn't take too long to get through, and maybe we can even get through it throughout the course of our live stream. But he was kind enough to purchase this commission on his own, and right now we've set the price of that as $250. But Daniel and I were starting to talk today, and we want to continue this conversation about how do we make this available to people who can't afford that price. Okay, so here's my thought. Rather than just have a goal of however much money we want to make for each stream and just hope for the best and give somebody a game at the end of it, what if we make our goal $250 for the week? So if we do 2 streams a week, or however many streams we do, our goal is $250 by the end of that Friday stream. And if we get to the 250, whoever donated, we will do a Wheel of Curtis, and they will all get their little piece of the pie based on how much they donated. And that person who gets chosen by the wheel will be offered a co-host of the game of their choice.
Yep, and what this will also enable people to do is donate between live streams, because at the moment it seems that between live streams people don't feel comfortable donating because it's not acknowledged in any way. You don't get a widget or you don't get anything if it's between live streams. But this way we'll have one goal for the week. And if you donate between the Monday and Friday live stream, you'll be acknowledged in the Friday live stream and you'll be part of the Wheel of Curtis in case we reach the 250.
And so should we have should it be increments of $5? So $5 minimum. So in terms of like creating the piece of the pie, or so if someone were to give 25 and someone were to give 5, the person who gave 25 will get 4 more opportunities to be
in the service. No, it doesn't have to be in increments of 5. People can donate anything above the minimum of $3. But in the service I'm using for the Wheel of Curtis, I can make every pie the equivalent size of their donation. So if we have the 250 as 100%, then every $2.50 is one piece of the pie.
Yeah. So I think that'll be great. I think, we're going to see how things go as Jouex on Friday. I have a feeling it's going to be really fun and a new sort of added a whole new dimension to what we're doing. And my guess is, unless for whatever reason it's a bust, this might be something that people are going to look at and go, ooh, I would love to do that too. And so if we make that, for at least the time being, our general goal, because we want to make it available like a lottery. If you can't pay $250, and a lot of people can't, at least they get a chance of being selected if they donate a little bit to get there. So I think that's one thought that we would like to. Let's try that.
And besides, we don't bite. We're fun to hang out with. I think.
I think
I'm biased,
so, yeah.
But
a couple of things before we get to our interview. We have been invited and have accepted the invitation to join a sort of adventure game collective. Daniel, want to talk a little bit about who the Adventure Game Network and Hotspot is and what we're doing with these guys?
Yeah, the Adventure Game Hotspot is a collective of currently 4 YouTube websites, and hopefully there will be more soon. And the idea behind this collective is to create a focused group of people who are content creators who specialize in adventure games mainly. Now, this collective will also have an event next year, if I'm not mistaken, in April next year. And we'll have a booth, which
in Tacoma, Washington. They're doing what we're calling an adventure game convention of some sort, right?
Mm-hmm. And hopefully they'll be able to finance my plane ticket there. Or Paul will be solo in that booth with a cardboard cutout of me.
There you go. That would be great. I'll have you sitting there on the Zoom. We'll put an iPad on the table next to me.
And so at the end of our live streams, we'll now have their logo after the credit scene, which is also a new thing we've added, as a way to show the names of all of our Patreon members, because currently we show the $10 or more at the beginning, and we acknowledge the coffee members who donated in the past 30 days. But this will be a way to show all of the people who donate and join as coffee members or Patreon members for $3, $5, and the lower tiers. And this is our way to acknowledge you all. And so instead of the see you next time screen we currently have after the outro, we'll have the credit scene, and then at the end we'll have the Adventure Game Hotspot logo.
Yeah, that's great. And then one final thing that we sort of brainstormed about this week is the idea of creating more and more YouTube shorts from our previous. We have so many live streams of us playing games, of us interviewing people, and it just seems, I've been thinking for quite a while now that we need to get little snippets out there so people can see it and it can drive more people to our channel. And Daniel, you've done a number of those over the months, but we're just, both strapped for time. So one of our is Hesena also one of our Patreon members? I know
she's a coffee donor.
She's a coffee donor, right? So Hesena reached out to us saying that she would love to create some of those clips, and so she's done an incredible job. And in fact, we're going to show a couple of her clips on our stream on Friday. But she's made a bunch of YouTube clips from some of our very first. In fact, from the very first episode we did, where I shared some information about Phantas 2 and then some of our early interviews. And so we're going to start posting those on our YouTube channel. But what we want to do also is create a Discord channel on our... So we have a Discord channel. What are the things? A
channel on our Discord server.
Our server. Okay. A channel on our Discord server that allows any one of you to take a free, a favorite moment from one of our past clips and then cut it down. It could be, for a YouTube short, it's 60 seconds or less. But if you wanted to create a 2 to 3 minute clip that you loved and put it on that Discord channel, we will, in all of our streams, we will share those with our audience and give you credit for that. And then we will hopefully be able to use those clips that you love so much and put them on our YouTube channel so more people can see them. So our hope is to get you to help us identify some best of moments from our previous clips, because that's really hard for us to do on our own.
Yeah, and in addition to that, the fact that people who subscribed in the past year or so don't always go back and watch 100 videos of conversations with Curtis. They don't watch all of the live streams. They don't watch all of the conversations. So a lot of these things will be new to most people who are subscribed to our channel. And even our first subscribers probably even forgot or didn't watch.
I did. I forgot. I watched what Hessen, she created, a bunch of clips from the very first episode that I did, where I'm just sitting on my couch and got my laptop and I put that whole thing together and just watching, 3 or 4 of the 1 minute clips she put together. It really was surprising to me how much well, yes and no, but I put a lot of time into that, so I do remember it. But the conversation I had with Todd Lasea and his memory of being in the room when they just put all the KY jelly on that kid, it's really great hearing him tell that memory again, and I remember it, but it was really much more vivid here seeing it again. So there's a lot of value to looking back and seeing some of the stuff we've done before, because there's a lot of good stuff in there.
And in addition to that, we can also show the specific clip he's talking about, because not all people remember that part or have seen it at all. So I've posted, for example, Graham Annable, who I've interviewed a couple of months ago, talked about the turtle puzzle. And he created the turtle puzzle in the dig. Remember when you had to reconstruct the turtle skeleton? So he worked on that. Now, even though the interview is on our channel, not all people watch the entire interview or watch it at all. And this was a great way to get people to watch the interview by posting that clip of him talking about the turtle in a square format. And at the bottom, I show the turtle puzzle. And then it got people engaged in the fact that now they know that we're talking about the turtle puzzle, which everyone hates. And so they found it interesting to see what he had to say for himself about creating that puzzle.
So lots of cool stuff. We'd love for you to help join us, especially create these clips. We'll make that channel on our server available shortly. We'll mention this in our stream again tomorrow with Jouex, and hopefully you can help us. Help us. What is it? Help me help you.
Help us help ourselves.
We want you to help. Yeah, help us help ourselves. Exactly. All right. Our guest today is Denny Delk. Denny Delk is a very successful voiceover actor, best known for providing the voice of Murray in the Monkey Island series, as well as my personal favorite character and my kids' personal favorite character, the citizen of Melee Island and Monkey Island, Secret of Monkey Island, as well as a range of voices in many LucasArts games, including Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, Day of the Tentacle, Sam and Max Hit the Road, Star Wars TIE Fighter, Full Throttle, and many, many others, including the most recent Return to Monkey Island game. So please enjoy Daniel's and my conversation with Denny Delk. Denny Delk, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and welcome to Conversations with Curtis. And yes, you're right. We do know who you are, and you don't know who we are. So let me give you a little context. I know you've done many interviews over the years with gaming enthusiasts and such, and this is a little bit different. And it's going to take a couple seconds to kind of go through this, but my name's Paul Stetler, and I'm an actor out of Seattle, Washington.
Cool.
And I primarily work on stage here in the Northwest, and I've done a lot of TV gigs and voiceover gigs and teaching and all that stuff. I'm not a gamer by any means, or never have been. But back in 1996, I was cast as an actor in a full motion video game that was called Phantasmagoria 2, A Puzzle of Flesh, by the now defunct Sierra Online.
Right.
And so as an actor, I had this really great gig as the main protagonist in this kind of horror genre game. It didn't do particularly well. It wasn't a big hit. And then that particular type of game, which was really a short period where they were trying to make interactive movies with actual live actors, green screen and sets and all that stuff. It ultimately became too expensive to maintain. So that kind of fell by the wayside. So as an actor, I didn't really think much about it. I went on with my career. I never did another game. And years and years went by. And back in 2021, I guess it was, during the height of the pandemic, I had a lot of free time on my hands. I realized it was the 25th anniversary of the making of the game, and people had kind of reached out to me over the years. It had found some sort of a following. So I just did a retrospective. I reached out to the actors, the writer, the director, the designers who made the game, and I just talked to them, and we all reflected on what we remembered about the making of that game. And I posted that on YouTube. And it found an audience. And Daniel, being one of them, Daniel's a game developer out of Israel, who is a huge fan and just a vast historical knowledge of all classic adventure games. He reached out to me, and so he and I have now since partnered. And so now what I'm doing now is I'm playing these adventure games for the very first time. And so I'm playing games that most of these people played when they were teenagers and that they kind of grew up on, the Monkey Island and all those things. And I'm just having a delightful time discovering them for the very first time. And so when I play some of these new games, something will click where I'm like, oh, this person's voice, or who wrote this, or who's that person? And then we try to reach out to those people on the artistic end of things and just continue like this oral history, which goes beyond our game and into those classic games from the past. So all leads us to you. So Daniel introduced me to the Monkey Island games a few months ago. And the very first game was the first one. And the voice that just completely stood out to me was the citizen of Melee Island.
Oh, okay.
Which you may not even remember anymore, but that was okay. So the guy that was on the street corner who sold the map. And I remember thinking, wow, what a voice. That voice is just tremendous. And then as the game went on, I would be able to identify, was that the same guy? And then your name kept coming up. We played some more of the games. And then, of course, Murray shows up in Curse. And so it's just been, you've been on our list of someone to talk to for a while now. So we really want to thank you for taking the time to do that. So yeah, I think it might be a good thing if Daniel, if you have it queued up, it might be fun to start with sharing that voice or that character with Denny, and then we can talk a little bit about what you remember from that.
Excuse me, but do you have a cousin named Sven?
No, but I once had a barber named Dominique.
Close enough. Let's talk business. You want to buy a map to the legendary lost treasure of Melee Island? Only one in existence. Rare. Very rare. Only 100 pieces of 8.
That's
so
great.
That was the scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny. I since I played it with Daniel and we streamed it in front of our fans. I then introduced it to my family. I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they both on their own were like, "Oh, I love that voice. Who is that guy?" And they really wanted to. They just so that was their favorite character, and we were all so bummed that the Citizen of Melee Island didn't have a bigger part or didn't come back into the other games. But thank goodness you were able to voice some other iconic characters. So I guess just to start, here's what I'd like to know, just to kind of start at the beginning. At what point in your life, I imagine puberty hits, your voice changes. At what point do you realize your voice has that kind of timbre, or that it has a unique quality that you can actually make use of?
I think it was after the first bottle of scotch, but yeah.
So was it 14, 15?
Having worked in a lot of different markets over time, and I would imagine that Seattle is pretty much the same. I never spent much time there, but for instance, if you work in New York, you do stage. If you work in Los Angeles, you do TV and radio. San Francisco was always known for advertising. And then suddenly they developed, actually, a friend of mine and I did some of the first voices on a game out of Silicon Valley, which I cannot think of. It was some sort of an adventure game. And the producers had done their own voices, and it sounded like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, if you remember that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Gonna get you, bad dude. No, you're not good, dude. And so it was one of those things where, developing the ability to do lots of voices kind of came naturally. Are you familiar with a guy by the name of Paul Frees? He was a very big voiceover guy. He did Toucan Sam for Fruit Loops. He did the Jolly of the Jolly Green Giant. He was also the Pillsbury Doughboy. And I mean, his range was incredible. And having worked with him early on in my career was like, well, try it. They can only say no. So, we did a lot of things. And in fact, Monkey Island was one of the first where we got our video game people producers, in fact, to let us do some improvisation. And San Francisco was a big town for improvisation. So, we'd create our own. We'd have the scripted lines, which we'd record, but then we do other weird, out of the park kinds of things. And I like that. I love that. The producers, in fact, their favorite character, or at least they've told me repeatedly, was Murray the Skull. Murray, I'm going to put a curse on you. And in fact, they asked me to record a telephone answering machine loop for them for their, asking Murray telling the caller, leave a message. Hi, Murray, the demonic skull will give it to them. So.
Well, that's great. That's great. So, I mean, one of the real delights of all of the Monkey Island games are all those repetitive, like if you can just go down a whole bunch of rabbit holes of asking certain questions and getting numerous answers, and a lot of repetition and humor that comes along with that. So it's neat to know that not only were you, of course, being true to the script, but having some flexibility and having fun being able to. Now, I imagine with those first two games, because they were originally done without voices and had been played for many years, I guess in those first 2 games, you probably had to stay true to what was already there. Or was there some flexibility in those too?
They allowed us, not being in the final production piece of it, and not being much of a gamer myself. I do play a few, but so I'm not sure what's in there originally, and have really not gone back to look. But they got excited when we worked on it, and it was one of the things that I was there at the start of the gaming world when you still had Pac-Man and some of the others would just bloop, 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 bloop as you would go chasing something. When they started bringing in voices, it became very interesting. In fact, I was very involved with AFTRA, the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists at the time. And so we got a call, a friend of mine and I, who were both actors, said, we'd like you to come help us with this. And said, okay, fine. We went to see what they were looking at and said, well, that's great, but we have no idea what to charge you. This is whole new ground. What do we do?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what
exactly.
the local AFTRA
And then
office.
at that point, you probably don't. And at that point, I'm curious how things have changed. But back in the day, you're doing commercials and there's residuals and there's a certain fee structure. And then, but with video games, I imagine, how do you even figure out was it a flat fee to start with? Did it ever get to a point where you were making anything off of, I don't know, sales, or how did that come about?
There's been talk about a sales bump. Nobody's achieved it yet, although there have been incredible increases in fees over the years. But the interesting part of the gaming payout, I don't think most games have a shelf life longer than like 18 months for sale, because after 18 months, you better have a new version. And for instance, with the Monkey Island series, we've got to have done 8 of them. Treasure Monkey Island, Quest for Monkey Island, whatever from a whole bunch. And so most of the characters that everybody likes, with LeChuck and Murray and some of the others that are out there, you better bring back the real ones, because people will rise up on their hind legs and say, that's not Murray.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
it was a nice payout to start with, and then we're going back after a year and a half and going to redo some stuff. So it was good and it was fun, and prices have grown exponentially, and
That's good.
It's interesting to have the following. I get things from people all the time who've found me out. Can I get your autograph? Well, send me something. I'll do that. And no,
that's funny. Well, yeah, it's humbling to think that something you did, well, you've just done a recent version of it, but when some of the things that you've done in the past have had such a profound effect on and Dan, you can speak to this in terms of how you being a gamer and kind of discovering this when you were a kid, how these voices, how these games really helped in many ways, you develop who you are and your interests, right?
Yeah, no, my first introduction to your wonderful voice acting was in the floppy disk version of Day of the Tentacle. Now, unlike the CD-ROM version, which came out at the same time, the floppy disk version only had the intro voiced. The rest of the game was just text, like the old adventure games, because there was not enough space on the floppy disks. And so I mainly got to hear you as Purple and Green Tentacle in a time in which voices coming out of the computer was basically witchcraft. But this was during a time in which voice acting in computer games was still in its infancy and didn't get the respect that it deserved. And so having you as someone with such a great voice some of these characters was very surprising, because up until that point, games like, for example, King's Quest V were voiced by Sierra employees. They didn't get actual voice actors or professionals to voice them. You saw someone in the hallway, you asked him to come into the recording booth and record King Graham or whatever. And so what made you take this project in such a time in which voice acting in computer games was still a niche?
Well,
and also play several major characters in Day of the Tentacle. You have
it was
Purple Tentacle, Green Tentacle, George Washington, and Hoagie.
It was all fun because it was almost like doing cartoons, which is another favorite thing of mine, and being able to take a lot of license and as I said, create the character. I mean, the piece you had a little bit ago of one of the original Monkey Island things. Yeah, I mean the graphics are so 70s.
Yeah, exactly.
And stuff like that now, is I mean it's almost film theater quality. And so it's really very interesting to do. But I mean, King's Quest, I did a few of those after they realized that they needed to bump up their game a little.
You did King's Quest 7.
I believe that was the one, yeah. And then we also
you were King Otar the Third.
He knows. But we also did I still get people who say, you taught me chess, because we did Chess Master. And we had
the narrator there.
Yeah. And one of my favorite stories is some years ago, we'd done all the Star Wars things because Lucas was right there, and I'd done some cartoons for Lucas. And so I was one of the picks to come be part of the Lucas gaming family. And we did pretty well. Most of them were focused on the Star Wars stuff. And they had TIE Fighter and all these other things. And most of them Twitch games, but anyway, I was in Macy's trying to buy a pair of shoes, and this guy who had really long hair, even for San Francisco and working for Macy's, had really long hair, but he was the shoe guy. And so we're walking through the aisles looking at shoes, and he says, "Man, I know your voice." And I said, "Well, I do commercials and stuff." He says, "That's not it, but I'll think of it." And so we finish doing the shopping. He puts my shoes in the bag, and he says, "Could you say, 'Follow me through the pylons and stick close'?" And I was the instructor for almost all of the little Twitch games that they did with, piloting the various Starcraft and, giving you the directions and, pull up, and that sort of thing. So he had a really good ear. Unfortunately, he was selling shoes all the
time. So you're based out of San Francisco now, and probably have been. How long have you been in the Bay Area?
Well, I'm bi-coastal, if you consider that the Gulf Coast is another coast. So I split my time between San Francisco and Corpus Christi, Texas. And
okay, great.
We moved to California in the late 70s and have recently started up down here in Corpus. My mother-in-law is up the road a couple of hours from where we are. As my very intelligent wife says, we're close, but not too close. And so we get to run up there from time to time. And
nice.
I mean, I'm sitting here in my studio in Corpus, and just finished hooking up with New York, and before that with some folk in actually just outside London, and that was another gig. So as long as you got the internet.
Absolutely. Well, I want to talk a little bit. I want to see if I can. I know we'll break this up. We won't take up too much of your time, but I'm very curious and just in your background and how things have changed. I did enough voiceovers back in the day that I know how much it's changed. I want to get into that, and then we'll definitely we have a number of voices queued up for you, and I know Daniel will have some more specific questions to cater to the people that know all your voices as well as he does. But where did you start off?
Sorry. So just make Daniel stop his wall from moving. Okay, it's getting really creepy.
It does. It gets a little.
I'll change my background.
I've been seeing it for a long time, and it still mesmerizes. So, were you born in Oklahoma? Did I read that? Is that where you originally grew up? Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about your whereabouts? Was it Tulsa? Whereabouts were you? And but what was the family dynamic like back in the day?
Tulsa was a grand place to grow up. It was what should I say? A place where you could still, play outside into the evening and do all those sorts of things. Had always been attracted to performance, and I actually blame my career choice and where I wound up on my mother, because when we were little kids, like 5 years old, and she would put us down for a nap, and she would read us a story, so that we could have something to, make our minds spin while we're sleeping. And if she read us the Three Billy Goats Gruff, each of the Billy Goats had a different voice. So.
Oh, so she really began the process of the opening it up that you can take on so many different characters.
I got permission long, long ago.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Anyway, but the family dynamic was everybody else is in medicine. Except me. And although I have had more clients.
I can relate.
I've had more clients that I used to be the voice of the American Academy of Ophthalmology, several other medical type things. And primarily it's because I grew up not speaking Latin or hearing Latin spoken, but hearing doctorese spoken, because doctors don't do it the way the Latin scholars do. And so, yeah, I was for about 12 years, I was teaching doctors how to do various eye surgeries. And when my wife had a few years ago had cataracts done, I said, "Oh yeah, phacoemulsification. No, this is my surgery. Let me tell the story." But yeah, or the doctors at one point said, "You record all this stuff for us, and it's all very good, but you never see the pictures. And do you want to ever look at what's going on?" I said, "No, that's why I didn't become a doctor."
Yeah, exactly. That's why you play one on the radio.
Yeah.
And then what was when you left Tulsa? Was it to go to university, or were you already decided to make your mark and get to a bigger city to kind of pursue this? And what ultimately led you away from maybe on camera, on stage acting, and to focus primarily on your voiceover?
Well, let's see, the first part of that would be primarily that I started in radio in high school. I actually had a job at a little radio station in Tulsa that they had a sign painted on their door. It said $1 a holler, and I would do weekend disc jockey stuff and that sort of thing. But awesome. I had a bad habit of, what should I say? My sense of humor is almost always on. So the problem that I had was I'd get thrown out of class in high school, even in junior high. I'd get a job at a radio station or a TV station. I'd last, 6 to 8 months. You're fired. When I started getting, finally got to a market, which was San Francisco, that was big enough to make freelancing a living. I realized that all those skills that I developed in getting thrown out of class were exactly what I needed to achieve my goal in voiceover, just being a wiseacre.
Yeah. Do you have a good story or a memory of of a particular moment that got you fired?
Oh, gosh, any number of them. I suppose it was by that time we were in San Jose, California, and there was it was a news type station, and I was hired to be it was still a disc jockey, but it was disc jockey who played newsmen rather than playing records.
Okay.
So the newsman came in, had his kicker story at the end of the thing was that in San Diego there was a strike going on among the fishermen who were not going out fishing, and that it was entirely you couldn't get fresh fish and so on and so forth, so on and so forth. And I said, so they're not letting them go out and cast a net? When I got off, I said,
that's good stuff. Oh my gosh. That's people don't have good. Oh, the lack of sense of humor that's out there. That's crazy. That's wonderful. And then, the thing that I see your studio, you're in your studio, in your home, and that was not how it was back in the day, right? Back in the day, you would get hired. Your agent would probably call you up and you'd go down to various studios. I'm sure you got to know all the technicians. You'd walk into a room, either audition or do your job. And so you weren't in any way responsible for the technology, or you were there to do your job. Nowadays, you are as much of a technician as you are a voiceover artist. I'm curious how much, what do you miss and what do you like about the new way of how the voiceover world has changed?
What I miss is the people. I have friends in every market in the country that have been doing this sort of thing, and we're coming to a place in my cycle of life when the friends we're starting to lose them, put it that way. And it's been about a year ago that a friend of mine, his name is Craig, he was in New York City, and he was the voice of CBS for a long time. And anyway, he passed away. And so one of our friends set up a Zoom call, but it was like 1,000 people or whatever, just a huge number of people on the Zoom call. And everybody was sitting in their little studios at their house, and talking about Craig. And somebody finally made the observation, this is the most people I've been with, in the past 5 years in any kind of recording situation, in any kind of technical situation, because nobody goes anywhere anymore with other people. It's just, it's a missing thing. But when I started, I actually had a bit of a leg up because one of my buddies from junior high school, his dad was a hi-fi aficionado back when you had reel-to-reel tape and all that other stuff. And we used to go over to his house and we would concoct our own radio shows, and we would be different people and we'd play music and whatever. And so we put together a little 15-minute radio show, and it was just, our way of burning up time.
Yeah, but then in the meantime, you're learning all the stuff. You're learning what works and what doesn't work, and having to work with the equipment and all that, right? Yeah. Do you enjoy your sort of running your own home studio? Have you figured out all the details to make that work?
It's very convenient. The software and everything is, it's very funny. We had a studio for the longest time in San Francisco that the guy who owned it was head of, I think the acronym is SPARC. Anyway, it's the Professional Recording Engineers Club or something. I don't know. But, they're always involved with pushing the new technology. And when the Pro Tools people come out and started using Pro Tools, he was convinced that he was going to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in his studio because it's so simple to edit, and you can, edit all you want, and then you can just unedit. It's not like you're slicing tape and all that sort of stuff. And you can pitch it up, you can pitch it down, you can speed it up, you can slow it down. He said, they're going to get done. I charge for an hour minimum, but it usually takes 3 hours to get, a good spot done. He says, they're going to be gone in an hour. I'm going to lose 2/3 of my income. And talked to him a couple of months later after he had installed the test stuff for it. He says, no, actually, we doubled the time because you can do so much stuff to it. Every producer wants to see, well, what would it be like if we were to?
Yeah. Too much choice, right? Now the sky's the limit. And that's fascinating. Wow, that's great. That's great. Well, Daniel, I know you've got a number of things that you've got lined up, and we'd love to share some of your voices that you've done, Denny, and to kind of hear your memories and thoughts about that. So Daniel, feel free to take it away from here.
I'll share the intro I was talking about for Day of the Tentacle, and I have a question about it.
I'm thirsty.
I don't think you should drink that. It looks bad for you.
Nonsense. It makes me feel great. Smarter. More aggressive. I feel like I could. Like I could. Like I could. Take all the world.
So that was the clip, the iconic intro for Day of the Tentacle. Now I
It's
have
funny. It's my first time seeing it, and it really is so reminiscent of those Saturday morning cartoons I grew up with. That must have been really fun. Yeah.
Now I have a question about the intro. How do you handle working on multiple characters in the same game? For example, you're both these characters. So how can you keep their voice distinctive enough so that people won't notice that it's you in both instances? Because, for example, our viewers, when we told them that we're getting Denny Delk, then most of them know you as Murray and as Purple Tentacle, but they didn't know that you're also Green Tentacle and that you're also Hoagie and George Washington. So that means that they were unable to recognize your voice in Green Tentacle's voice. So how do you keep those distinctive enough?
Well, you try and pull things out that are not parallel. I mean, obviously, Purple Tentacle is scheming and evil, and Hoagie was one of my favorites because he was sort of a country hippie. Like, oh yeah, but
it was that guy from the store you talked about.
Yeah, right. But you find those things that don't parallel. And one of the things is I recollect, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but the George Washington, everybody made fun of his wooden teeth. Well, actually, they were hippopotamus tusks, but that's okay. Making him sound a little different as I recollect the character because they just weren't fitting properly. But all those,
That's a
all those
great
different
choice.
things. I suppose the one thing that there's actually another voice. It's not a game voice, but that I did. It's been 30 years ago now, but they couldn't figure out what they wanted when we did it. We done the body of the commercial 2 or 3 different times as a guy sitting there listening to the radio, and so we did it as a top 40 DJ. We did it as a AOL, middle of the road kind of DJ. We did it as a country DJ, and finally said, we did the last one. We said, well, we got a tagline on here. We'd like you to do that. And so I said 2 words, got milk. And it played for 25 years and kept paying residuals the whole time.
Yeah, I read that you were the got milk guy. That was, boy,
I was in the right
two
place.
best words of your career, right? Yeah.
Well, I was being interviewed with a bunch of other folks by a talk show out of Chicago, and one of the hosts of the show said, "Do you ever feel, like embarrassed or in any way that, like, 2 words and it's been paying you all this time, Says, does that ever bother you?" I said, no, because when we originally recorded, after we finished what they wanted, I said, would you like me to record, have you got milk? So when you get letters from English teachers, we'll be able to, change it over. And they said, no, we don't want that. So I'm clear. I'm clean.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Boy, that went on for how many years did that stick around? That's still no one's forgotten that.
25.
Dang, that's so great. That's so great. All right, Daniel, what else you got? I'm sure you got a million more little.
Okay, first of all, I want to show the got milk commercial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alexander Hamilton, that famous duel. All right, let's go to the phones and see who's out there.
Aaron Burr.
Hello, for $10,000, who I'm afraid your time is almost up. I'm sorry. Maybe next time.
Got milk?
And I like how you just underplayed it, like it just was such a...
Well,
That's a
it's
great commercial.
the whole series was great fun, and it was a fellow in San Francisco by the name of Jeff Goodby who was the motivator behind the entire series. And I mean, they're all, oh my heavens, how did is it the guy who thinks he's in heaven and he opens the refrigerator and all the milk cartons are there, but they're all empty, and realizes he's in heaven.
That's great. I also love that this clearly was the inspiration for Lin-Manuel Miranda for Hamilton. So that's good. 25 years ago, 30 years ago.
Now I'm going to play Hoagie.
Look, Hoagie, it's a hamster. Just what I need for dissection lab tomorrow.
I think I need that for the band, Laverne. Like we could bite its head off or whatever.
So
That's
that was
great.
Hoagie.
That's so good.
And this is George Washington in the same game.
Excuse me. Yes? Mr. President, may I offer you an excellent smoke? Can you also provide me with a light? Sure. Well, in that case...
Nice.
Blast, I hate it when that happens. See if you can't find those for me, will you? There's a good lad.
That's great stuff.
Now,
So yeah, you get to my guess, and I think Daniel was asking this earlier, is that my guess is that you record all one voice first and then you do the other one. But do you ever play around and just bounce off? Were you able to ever just do both the voices and at the same time and just kind of have that conversation? I'm sure you have the skill set to do that. It'd probably be fun for you to do that.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to try, but the production standard at the time, you'd always do animation, do cartoons and that sort of thing as a gang. Everybody's in the studio, you're playing off each other, bouncing off each other. Part of the tough part of doing the gaming stuff, particularly if it's something that's needs to have a lot of emotion or shrieking and carrying on, is you're there by yourself with the recording engineer and the producer. And so you have to achieve those different levels of development on your own. So it is, kind of striated. Now, okay, we're going to do George Washington until we get all of George Washington, and we're going to go do Hoagie, and in fact, every once in a while, I recall when we were doing things that I was doing two characters that were talking to each other. That you'd have to play me him again one more time.
Yeah, you'd have to hear yourself that makes sense. Yeah, so that you can respond in a way that is true to what was given to you, right?
I'm always impressed by the Simpsons people, because each of them is doing at least three characters in every show, and they keep them far enough apart. I mean, it's wonderful. Harry Shearer is one of my favorites. He's very, very funny. So
yeah, he sure is.
Did you find it difficult to return to characters that you've done years ago? Because when you did Curse of Monkey Island, it was 1997. And then when you voiced the first and second Monkey Island special editions, it was 2009 and 2010. And at the same year, you also had Tales of Monkey Island. So you had at least a decade, or more than a decade, between recordings. And then with Return to Monkey Island, you had another decade to wait for the other sequel. So basically 13 years at a time, every time.
Well, I think the biggest thing is probably position of the producer. Because producers, I mean, it's like any director, oh, we're going to remake King Kong, okay? And the director says, I wasn't really impressed with the way they did that, so we're going to make the hero on the boat. It's going to be Jeff Bridges instead of I can't remember who it was, but anyway, so it's Jeff Bridges. He's not going to be a suave. He's going to be more of a punk, long hair, bearded guy, and it's going to change what goes on. So it is. I think it's when I come to it, I will come to it as I remember it. I can even listen to parts of the game sometimes. They'll have that on hand. But again, I'm working for the producer. The producer gets to tell me it's not quite what I want. I like it more. Mm-hmm. Could you do it as Garbo? I don't know.
Yeah, right. What was it like? Because you worked. Did you work with Ron Gilbert prior to Return? Was he around for the? Was he not around for the voices of the first couple games?
Well, it's been so long ago, and I have not kept up with many of the people. Usually, I would be, they'd have a line producer kind of person who would be the one responsible. So,
gotcha.
There's a lady named Chris Brown who I've worked with now for over 20 years, and they had decided they wanted not to record at Lucas, which was always a treat because of being up in Marin like that. But they'd found a little recording studio in Marin that was up in the hills. And so she drove up, and we all drove up to the recording studios in a glade, very picturesque little road that was carved out of the side of the mountain to get to it. Anyway, she parked her car, and as she was getting out of the car, one of the wheels was hanging over the precipice and started to.
Oh my gosh!
So I ran over and grabbed the other end of the car and pushed down really hard. It was some little tiny thing. Anyway, pushed down, said, "Chris, get back in the car, pull it up so that you're on solid ground." She still, whenever we talk, she says, "You saved my life that day."
Good, you got that on her. That's good. More work for you.
Sweet lady.
Yeah.
Now, Murray was a fan favorite when Curse of Monkey Island came out, and as a testament to that was the fact that even though that game wasn't by Ron Gilbert, he still chose to bring you back for Return to Monkey Island, even though most of the events and characters from the non-Ron Gilbert sequels were ignored or set aside in that sequel. Now, how did you make that character so iconic? Because from what I've heard, at first, Murray had a minor role in the game, and then after they heard your voice, they changed a lot of the plot to make Murray a more prominent character in the game itself. Is that true?
When we started out, they didn't know what to do with Murray. Somebody had decided to draw this character in, and so they said, we don't know. We just don't know. And I said, well, let's play with him a little bit. First of all, he's got to be frustrated. He's a skull, and he can't do anything. And he keeps saying, "Come over here! I'm going to bite you! I'm going to." And the other thing is, Murray is traditionally a good New York Jewish name, and so we made Murray have a little bit of an old Jewish accent. And over the years, various producers said, I don't know, we want to continue this. So he just became an old guy, more that direction than the other way. But come over here. I'm going to put a curse on you. I am demonic. Don't you listen? Go here. Come back here.
And the thing is, he was probably so good at being bad when he was alive and had his body that no one respects what he used to be, right?
all those things fold in, but the Murray's frustration is what sells Murray. He's just
absolutely
stuck there on the credenza or the bedside table or wherever they've got him propped up. You wonder how he moves from one place to another, but he just happens to be there. So, but he's still.
Well, I think it's a great. Well, I stumbled upon a video. Somebody made. Well, I guess I'll just let Daniel show it, but this just goes to show the depth and the breadth of how Murray has influenced many people. So take a look at this. I'm not sure if you've seen this before.
I don't think so.
So they created an animatronic.
So all he has to do is put his hand nearby, and you'll get a Isn't that something?
Oh yeah.
I'm really high widow's peak. Isn't that great? Isn't that something? So taking your voice, putting it, creating this. So that's just, again, you never know when you're doing what you're doing, how it can have such a ripple effect of how it affects people in a fantastic way. That's so great.
Now I want to share a few more clips.
Sure.
Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, which was released the same year, the CD-ROM version, which was released the same year as Day of the Tentacle, you were Omar El-Jabbar.
Are you Mr. Omar Al-Jabbar?
I am but a humble shopkeeper. My name is unimportant.
Do you ever deal in antiquities from Atlantis?
Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Many a fool dreams of the Lost Kingdom. How may I know your intentions are serious?
Are you Mr. Omar Al-Jabbar?
I am but a humble shop.
One more clip. And the fact, it's mind-blowing to think that a lot of these games I played as a kid, and I only recently found out that he voiced all of these characters. Again, I knew about Murray and Purple Tentacle just like most of our viewers, but the fact that Omar El-Jabbar and the narrator in Monkey Island 2 as well, and in Sam and Max See the Road, you were Shep and Burl, if you remember the Siamese twins.
See this melted block of ice?
How could we miss it?
This used to be our main attraction.
Your main attraction was a block of ice?
Don't be dense. Our main attraction was a genuine, authentic, real-life Bigfoot on ice.
Hey, let me get this straight. You want us to go traipsing all over the country looking for a soggy Bigfoot?
I've never been traipsing before. Does it hurt?
But Bruno must be returned to us.
I can't tell which voice is yours. They could all be yours.
Beast with no sense
of he's the Siamese twins.
Hey,
both of them.
The Siamese twins.
Melted block of ice?
Gotcha.
How could we miss it?
This used to be...
So it's always interesting that you're not only voicing several characters in the same game, but you're voicing characters that you can hear talking one after the other or talking to each other, and you still don't notice that it's the same voice actor. That's the interesting part.
Thank you.
And we heard Murray, and you're also the narrator in Monkey Island 2.
Mm-hmm.
Deep within LeChuck's fortress, blah, 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 blah.
That's good stuff. That's great. I love that. I love that sense of humor of those games. There's just a real sense of, they making fun of what they're doing as they're doing it, and then just the voices in general. And I know, like myself, Denny, it makes sense that you don't go back and watch or most actors don't watch their own stuff or go back and listen to it because you're moving forward, and it's harder to have real perspective on your own work. But what I took from those watching the Monkey Island games was, I had never played the games growing up, so I didn't have the experience that a lot of the players did, where they didn't have voices for many years, and then they came back to it and they heard these voices. I just got to hear but the voices are so good. They're all so good, and to think that they hired voice talent who individually went in and did the voices, and that they created, because there's something about what makes performance, makes or breaks performance, is everybody needs to be in the same world, right? And if there is a character or an actor who's just not quite in the same world that everybody else is, it really stands out. And what's fascinating to me about those Monkey Island games is that everybody fits. Everybody understood what they were creating and was able to bring their own version to it, but it all fit within. And I thought you were, just a perfect ringleader for that kind of, for the voices that you provided.
Well, I blame a lot of it again on San Francisco. We had an incredible cadre of performers, and that everybody did everything. I mean, the same people who went on stage in the theater district also did comedy or improv, and also did commercials and whatever. And when we started doing voices and showing people what could be done, we had this incredible cast to draw from. And I remember when, again, a Lucas project, we were doing the Ewoks cartoons, and we had a cast that were almost all of them were comedically oriented. So we get in the room together and just throw stuff around, and you always cut it out. It's not a problem, but if something really worked, and we had a really sick group of writers in those days, because they were always trying to sneak stuff past the censors, so we'd. I remember we went up to the Lucas set, and it really was a set. It was the office, but it was up at Lucas Ranch, and he had built it to look as though it were a 19th century farmhouse with all the outbuildings. A barn was the production room, and this, that, and the other. We walked into his office. He wanted to meet the people who were going to play his Ewoks, and he was standing there behind his desk, and there's a big window behind him, multiple panes of glass, sort of French door latticed in, and there was a dead tree outside. It was in the fall, all the leaves had fallen off. And so we're meeting him and talking to him, and suddenly a very large California golden eagle flies down and lands on the one of the branches. And one of our guys who had, it was just quick. He was a comic. He was great to work with. And he said, "Man, your animatronics are killer."
Boy, perfect timing. Got it right. It just came on down. Oh, that's great.
And they probably know that Lucasfilm has the budget for such things.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah, right. Yeah, what a joy it must be when you actually are able to be in a room with these other artists and other, and to be able to riff off each other. Because like you said, most of the time you're doing it on your own, and they have to edit that together. But how fun it must be when you get to do that.
Well, we had a group that we had on the boards for 20 some odd years. You may remember a group that had originally come from Chicago to San Francisco back in the 60s that was an improv group called The Committee. And there was a lady who, her husband was the guy who owned the Committee and the name and everything else. Well, anyway, Lee French was her name. She used to be a star on the Smothers Brothers show back in the day. And Lee and can't remember, Alan got divorced, and she won the name, The Committee. And so the guys who were in the committee talked her into giving it to her, or leasing it to them for $1 for a year. And they did, and they started the committee back up, and they were very funny. Well, she said at the end of the year, says, "No, I want it back now. It's mine. I'm taking it away." So they said, "Okay, we'll do something else." So they opened a group called the National Theater of the Deranged. And I was very honored to be chosen to be in that group. And we had a marvelous time doing it.
Sounds like you fit right in. That's great. So I want to hear a little bit about, so Return to Monkey Island. That was unexpected. And, again, I'm coming to this late in the game, but knowing that, it was 30 years, Daniel, since Ron Gilbert had made the first two and moved on, and then they made a number of versions of the game without him, and then he was able to get the rights back or work something out so that he could do another version of his game. What was your take when you first heard that was happening, and when did you get the call? And you also played some different characters in this one, if I recall. Yeah.
Well, I am less than privy to what exactly is going on and how things are set up. It's great. I'm working with Chris again, so that's a great thing. And but I am unclear as to where it's going to go. I know that the project is in mine. I don't know who is owner or anything else, so I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah, it's good. But still, it was a long time between doing these games. So was it fun to come back to it after all this time?
Oh, it's always fun to know that stuff that you've done is being appreciated by someone still. When we moved here to Corpus Christi, we struck up a friendship with a couple. And in fact, the lady is my wife's best friend. And their son, who is 35, recently married and has his first child. And when he met me the next time, he came over to the house with a basket full of LucasArts games and said, "Could you autograph these for me?" Turns out he had grown up with. He says, "I never expected to meet somebody like you." I said, "Settle down, Sam. It's okay. It's we'll get it taken care of." But in fact, when his son was born, I went out and found something for a birthing present, if you want to call it that. But it was a little onesie and said, "I am living proof that my father did more than just play video games."
We need more of those in the world. Daniel, that could be your next T-shirt.
Yeah. Now, you've voiced several Star Wars projects at LucasArts, and you were the narrator, and you were several characters. How come they didn't give you the voice of Darth Vader?
I'm really not sure, but it's that's a low reach to get down to that. I have the feeling that if they couldn't get James Earl Jones, then they just had to record somebody normal. And Robert.
But you're our James Earl Jones.
That's right, you are.
No, he's taller and black. So just so you know.
What are you working on now? Anything exciting that we can look forward to?
Like I said, just doing a bunch of auditions for the various sporting events that are coming up, and we now have what is USFL, which is burning up lots of commercial time and that sort of thing. So no, it's. I like to say I'm semi-retired. I don't go hunting for it anymore. But if something comes flopping over my transom, I'm happy to read an audition.
So if they make a Murray spin-off, will you be up for it?
Just as long as you have the rights,
Well, speaking of this is a good transition. We've taken up your time, and thank you for giving us your time today. Before we let you go, Denny, as a favor to us and the small but mighty little YouTube channel that we are nurturing, we would love it if you could maybe voice a couple little promos for our channel as Murray or as one of the tentacles, as a Purple Tentacle. Would you be open to doing that?
I think I could see my way clear to something or other.
And then we get to see your process here. We can see how you go from like seeing it for the first time, like giving it a.
You're recording this now?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Conversations with Curtis is a YouTube channel, but is it a demonic YouTube channel? Conversations with Curtis is a YouTube channel, but is it a demonic YouTube channel?
That's great. Thank you, Danny. That's really wonderful.
So amazing. It's like watching history in the making.
Please subscribe to Conversations with Curtis and help Paul and Daniel take on the world.
That's great. It's
Thank you
just
so
as
much.
fun. It's just as fun watching Daniel, because again, you're his childhood, and I'm coming at this from a different. I'm loving watching your process, but I'm seeing Daniel, the 8-year-old kid, and Daniel just going like, "Oh my goodness, he's actually saying it out loud."
Well,
Denny
enjoy.
Delk, thank you so much for taking time. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I know we bounced around with trying to get you on our other channel, so thanks for your patience and sticking with us. And we sure do appreciate all that you've done and taking the time to talk to us today.
Okay, be well.
Thank you, Danny.
So there you go. That was Denny Delk. It took us a while to get him, but we finally did, and I think it was well worth it. What did you think, Daniel? Was it fun to talk to someone who you've been listening to for so long?
Well, this entire time at Conversations with Curtis has been surreal because I've been talking to people who worked on my favorite games from my childhood that are currently still my favorite games, and hearing the voice actor for Purple Tentacle say my name is amazing.
It's the ultimate fanboy's dream, right? You're living the dream right now.
Well, I'm currently hosting a podcast with my favorite character for my favorite Sierra game, talking to the voice actor who voiced one of my favorite adventure games from LucasArts. So yeah. You know, a typical Tuesday on Conversations with Curtis.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it is surreal. And it was great. I thought he was wonderful. Really great stories. You could tell he's just still really enjoys what he does. It's also neat to know that, he's not aware of all of what goes on in terms of the history of the Monkey Island games and LucasArts and all that. He has his own world that he lives in, and when he's doing his voices, he's really working with the folks that are going to make his piece of the puzzle work. And so when we talk about Ron Gilbert or all that, you can see he's just like, yeah, I don't know about that. All I know is that I was asked to do this, and it's neat. It's like not everybody knows all the ins and outs, but he is such a huge part of what makes those games come to life. And it was really fun talking to him.
Yeah, and even in the conversations you had with the Phantasmagoria 2 cast and crew, a lot of the people don't actually know that they're making something that will resonate for players for years to come.
Yeah.
And so, for them it was a job that lasted however many months, and that's it. And they moved on. And the fact that people still contact them about the game is weird.
Well, before we go, and we call it a podcast, congratulations, podcast number 2, by the way. I will share with you an email I just received, hot off the presses, less than 10 minutes ago, from none other than Roberta Williams. It looks like it's going to happen. Looks like it's going to happen, folks. Hi, Paul. I am available on either May 16th or 17th between 12 and 3 p.m. Say hi to Tori for me. It has been a long time, Roberta. So there we go.
She'll be able to say hi to Tori herself.
She will. So yeah, I will get back to her. The only issue is I think Tori is on jury duty. So if she gets chosen, we may have to push it back. But it looks like, if possible, we finally have our long-awaited interview with Roberta Williams. How exciting is that going to be?
Maybe she should show clips from Phantasmagoria 1 to get off jury duty.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll work.
This is my husband. He and his drain cleaner.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That'll work. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next time on Conversations with Curtis.
Bye.
Conversations with Curtis, the podcast.